Hello, Shoyan here. I'm a Japanese carpenter. Today, I'm going to install the flat ceiling with cedar boards and the sloped ceiling with plasterboards. First, I'll install the ceiling frame. Before that, I'll construct some simple scaffolding. The ceiling is flat and low, so I only put up 4 to 5 boards for the scaffolding. The ceiling boards are solid wood. I'll cut the edge of one to use as a ruler. There is an exposed plywood beam in the center of the room, and it overlaps the pillar. So I'll install a 30 square millimeter piece of wood to the corner where it overlaps. The square lumber will also be used as a ceiling joist. Spring strips will be installed on the wall later, but the exposed pillar comes to the top, and I can't secure the spring strip to it. That's why I installed the square lumber to the corner first. Next, I'll measure the ceiling height. There is a groove for the ceiling on the exposed plywood beams. I'll use that groove as a reference and measure the height. The height of this house is lower than a typical house. The first floor is only slightly low, but the second floor is about 5 centimeters lower than usual. Natural ventilation is used in this house instead of mechanical ventilation. As the height is low, it seems it can ventilate well. If I install the ceiling joist parallel to the horizontal beam, the airflow from the bottom will cease. The air in the walls doesn't get through to the attic. So I'll install the footing strips under the ceiling joist and create a gap so that the air can flow through. The ceiling joist material is called nobuchi. Typically, it's about 4 square centimeters of cedar material. I only use this 4 square centimeters square material. Some people use thin 50mm thick footing strips, known as half footing strips. Because I'm going to use square lumber, it requires more material than that, but it'll be more stable if I only use nobuchi as a ceiling joist. First, I'll secure the ceiling joist to the 4 sides of the perimeter. Then, I'll install them at 300mm intervals between them. For the ceiling joist receiver, I'll install it at 700 to 800mm intervals. The ceiling joist receiver is installed on the top of the ceiling joists to make them level. If there is no ceiling joist receiver, the ceiling will be level even if the ceiling joists are installed at narrow intervals. It's important even when hanging the ceiling from above. We tend to use high-quality material to the lower ceiling joist and use the warped material with knots to the ceiling joist receiver. But if you don't use the straight materials for the ceiling joist receiver, it won't be a beautiful rising arch-shaped ceiling frame. I finished installing the 300mm ceiling joists. Next, I'll hang them with ceiling hangers. I'll hang them at 900mm intervals. It's best to use nails to secure the ceiling hangers, but nowadays, I use two 75mm screws instead of nails. If you only use one screw, the ceiling will sink when it breaks. So make sure to use two screws for each part. This time, there is exposed material at the center of the ceiling. There is only a 1.82 meter space. To add an arch rise to the ceiling, I'll shift them by 3 to 4mm and secure them. I finished installing the ceiling frame. Next, I'll measure and cut the ceiling boards. These are shrink-wrapped process boards, which are of high quality, but the wood color varies. This time, I'll install them in order to white to red so that they blend naturally. There's an exposed beam in the center of the room. I'll install the board edges at right angles to the exposed beam. It means I'll cut the long boards I have and install them. I'll draw numbers in two places on each board so they can be joined together when it's installed. I'll line up the cut boards and measure them to decide where to install them. I don't need to line up all boards. I'll line up half of them and decide where to install them. Now, I finished deciding on the position. Next, I'll install the boards using glue and 4mm tackers as I always do. It's tricky to install solid material boards on the ceiling. If there are only 20 boards, the colors won't match at all. If I want to match the color of 20 boards, I should choose from 40 to 50 boards. So this time, I decided to install the white sapwood boards to the red hardwood ones in order. I usually install them alternating the colors, but this time, if there are red boards in the front when entering the room, the ceiling color seems loud. So I install the lighter ones at the front to make the top seem simple and light. As the color gradually turns red towards the back of the room, creating a sunset motif. I'm installing the boards in order to their numbers. If I misplace even one number, the grain won't match. I don't need to worry about it when installing the half side, but I'll check the numbers sometimes to make sure the grain matches when installing the other side. I finished installing the flat cedar board ceiling. Next, I'll install the sloped ceiling. This is a ceiling where the sides are sloped and the top is flat. There is an exposed pine wood beam on top of the raised area. Because of that, the ceiling will bend in a few places along the wall with exposed pillars. This is a raised area, and the protrude part will be at the person's head level. Only the small 1.82 meter area will be flat. It would be easier if the ceiling were all sloped, but the designer wanted it to be as flat as possible. This sloped ceiling will be installed at 14 degrees, the same as the roof. So the bottom frame is cut out diagonally at 14 degrees. When I join the flat ceiling on top of the diagonal cut frame, I can't even turn the sloped ceiling into a flat ceiling with just the joining of the square lumber. I'll install the ceiling joist by placing the 40mm square materials at 300mm intervals, the same way I showed you. Now, I'll install the ceiling boards. Installing the ceiling boards is not my favorite thing to do, no matter how many times I do it. But I'll be working with an assistant who supports me quietly. Its name is Helping Stick. Well, I don't know the official name. It's a very useful tool, but I've never seen a ceiling installer use it. I think only a few people have this, and I've been using this for about more than 30 years. I want a new circular saw to cut the boards, but my screw nail gun is also acting up. It's a shame that my tools are all old, and I apologize for showing them. On the cut-ins of the boards where they join, I'll make sure to apply glue. If I apply glue, the joints won't chip and they won't crack. However, I'll be in trouble if the electrician asks me to remove this. I have now finished installing the cedar ceiling and the boards that will be plastered. It took about a week to install the ceiling on the second floor. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.